Look at the weather.
It's beautiful here.
Non-stop rain.
Oh, man, it is a blazer out there.
It's cold and it's shivery.
It is cold.
Really coming down here.
I really enjoy your weather reports.
From the All Indiana Podcast Network, we're talking weather in a whole new way. From historical events to what's coming up, plus weather news, science, safety, fun facts, and more.
I like where this is going.
This is Weather Weekly. Weather Weekly with Wish TV Storm Track 8 meteorologist Marcus Bailey.
It is episode number 45 of Weather Weekly. Good to have you along. I'm Marcus Bailey from Wish TV in Indianapolis, and good to have you here. This will be kind of a shorty here for the podcast, but wanted to get something put together for you. This is the holiday week. We're leading up to Christmas coming up this Saturday, and looking forward to that. Hopefully you'll have some time to spend with your families and loved ones here. Weather certainly is going to cooperate if you're kind of staying in the local area here around even the Midwest. We're in pretty good shape. We'll talk about that forecast coming up at the end of the podcast. Weather headlines here, kind of piggybacking off of last week's episode with Mike Ryan, senior meteorologist with the National Weather Service in Indianapolis. Spent a good deal of time about the tornado outbreak on the 10th and the 11th of this month. Surveys remain ongoing. They're starting to kind of tidy up things. What we do know is this will not be the longest tornado path ever recorded. So no quad state tornado as initially was thought. That will still stand. The longest tornado was the tri-state tornado. So we did not see that broken there. But still, on the ground, an incredibly long time. We are up to, I believe, 89 fatalities, unfortunately, directly from the twisters here, and 3 that were indirectly attributed to the tornadoes there. No EF5, surprisingly. Now, some of those still are subject to change. There are still a lot that they're trying to kind of go through. In terms of information, obviously, you look at places like Mayfield, and there's some others there that just had immense damage, but that is going to be continuing to evolve. But EF4 strength is what they're looking at, and that includes the Kentucky tornadoes, where we've seen just the immense amount of damage in Mayfield. But they believe that there were 2 distinct EF4s, and there was kind of a brief break over western Tennessee. And so that's why we don't get the classification of a one distinct tornado. So the record still stands March 18th, 1925, 219 miles. That is the record that stands right now. And we'll keep you updated. Obviously, this is going to be kind of an evolving situation that the Weather Service is going to continue to look at that. I should mention also there were 55 plus injuries. There is still no cost to the storms in themselves, as that will probably take some time. But we can expect that number to probably be immense with just the destruction that took place with those storms. So it's something we'll continue to kind of monitor here over the coming weeks. Hopefully we'll have some more information on the way next week, as we put on the last podcast of 2021. Also, I think this is worth noting, this is more of a worldwide headline here. 208 people, 208 now, the number of people that were killed due to a typhoon, which, if you're not familiar with, typhoon is just basically a hurricane. It's just out in the Pacific. This hit the Philippines, and I believe it also did hit portions of Vietnam, I believe, as well. This is Super Typhoon Rai, R-A-I. It was locally known as Odette. Made landfall Thursday on some of the islands there. 160 mile per hour winds. It was equivalent to a Category 5 storm. They don't rank them. Typhoons, kind of the equivalent of what we would do here in North America, or specifically in the United States, with some of our storms going, Cat 1 to Cat 5. But about 75% of homes in Bohol province were damaged. So pretty immense, devastating storm that has rolled through. Now, it's already moved out, but it hit some pretty heavily populated areas. Cebu is one of them, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. There's almost 1 million people within that city. And so that was pretty heavily damaged there. So that's where, unfortunately, a lot of fatalities came from. It does still stand right now. Ray is kind of moving out. But it's now down to the equivalent of a Category 2 storm. What's interesting is the Philippines. This is the 15th storm to hit this year. Now it is quite active in that part of the world when it comes to those types of storms. But yeah, 15, pretty nasty. So it's off the coast of Vietnam as we're recording this on a Monday afternoon. And continuing to weaken, and we'll end up hitting parts of China. It's in the South China Sea right now, but that's also something worth watching. That's going to be a big newsmaker there, as cleanup will be ongoing in the Asian Pacific there here over the next several weeks with that massive storm that just rolled through. I mentioned this is going to be kind of a brief one, but I figured it'd be appropriate, and I think we've touched on this a little bit. In the early December podcast, kind of previewing the month. But since we're gearing up for the holiday, we wanted to talk about white Christmases and the probabilities and what our chances might be of seeing a white Christmas here for 2021. That's coming up next here on Weather Weekly.
Audible's romance collection has something to satisfy every side of you. When it comes to what kind of romance you're into, you don't have to choose just one. Fancy a dalliance with a duke, or maybe a steamy billionaire? You could find a book boyfriend in the city and another one tearing it up on the hockey field. And if nothing on this earth satisfies, you can always find love in another realm. Discover modern rom-coms from authors like Lily Chu and Ali Hazelwood, the latest romantasy series from Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros, plus Regency favorites like Bridgerton and Outlander. And of course, all the really steamy stuff. Your first great love story is free when you sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/Wondery. That's audible.com/Wondery.
It is episode number 45 of Weather Weekly here. I wanted to get you ready for the holiday here. And I know we kind of touched on this probably a few podcasts back, early December, when we did the December Outlook. But I think it was worth kind of mentioning. This is going to be and I'll have a little bit more in detail here in just a bit, but this will be an interesting Christmas here. Don't think the chances for a white Christmas are all that high this year. And you have to remember, Christmas is defined as measurable snow on the ground Christmas Day. So it's been a few years since we've actually had that. You have to go back to 2017 when we had an inch of snow on the ground. Now, the last couple of years, at least looking at the data, there's been a trace snow depth, both 2020 and 2019, but I don't think that was enough to classify that as a white Christmas. You have to go back to 2017. I remember that well. My colleague Stephanie Mead and I were just talking about that because we were kind of getting the forecast together early this morning. Today's Monday. We were talking about, man, it just seems like it's been a while since we've had snow on Christmas, either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. And that year, I remember Stephanie had gone home to Chicago. She was planning to work that next morning for Christmas Day. And our boss at the time, Ken Brewer, who's in charge of scheduling, ended up texting me and Randy Alice about, I don't know if Stephanie's going to be able to get back. She's stuck on the tarmac at O'Hare. She's trying to fly back. She ended up getting back okay, but yeah, I mean, the weather was pretty hairy. She ended up getting back, and on very little sleep, I think she worked the 2-hour morning show on Christmas morning, but that was the last kind of instance that we had that. Just kind of looking over the last several years, I mean, I'll take you back here. We had an inch of snow on the ground in 2017. 2010 was kind of the last big snowpack we actually had. 2010, we had 5 inches of snow on the ground. 2004, we had 9. 2002, we had 7. But there's a lot of zeros in there. Now, we are kind of on a long stretch, because I'd say I'm kind of looking at this table here. We went some years, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in a row back in the mid to late 2000s that we didn't have any snow on the ground. However, that said, 2005, we had no snow on the ground, but we did have 2.5 inches of snowfall that day, 2005. The following year, we had about 0.3 of an inch of snowfall. But we're kind of on a stretch right now, barring outside of 2017, where we got 1/10 of an inch of snowfall that day, but we already had an inch of snow on the ground. We're on a stretch basically from 2011 to 2020 where we really haven't picked up much of snow or had much snow on the ground outside of that 2017. So we're kind of on a longer stretch compared to what you look at in the 80s, the 90s. I mean, you can go farther back, the 70s, and so on. So, and our temperatures have been kind of all over the place. We're forecasting for a pretty mild Christmas Day. Christmas, as of Monday's forecast, and obviously early on is subject to change, but I'm going 57 on Christmas Eve with rain and 50 and dry on Christmas Day. The average high for Christmas is typically around 37, 38, upper 30s, okay, for Indianapolis. Now, last year was cold. I don't know if a lot of people really remember it because we were still very much in the heart of the pandemic. That was the first Christmas that we were in the pandemic, if you remember. And so a lot of people probably weren't out and about as much as you would see prior to that. It was really cold last year. We only got a high of 15 and a low of 10. Did have a trace of snowfall that day, but not enough to really stick or anything like that. The year prior to that was extremely warm. It was 62. I think I remember seeing some people, there were some golf courses that were open that day, and there were actually people golfing on Christmas Day. Year prior to that, 18, 46 the high, had some light precipitation in the form of rain. 2017, chilly, 23 was a high. 2016, 47, 2015, 51, and 2014, 41. So you had basically the majority of those days were above average, in some cases well above. The exception was last year, 2020, and 2017. But, this stretch over the last 7 years basically has been extremely mild. And again, we really haven't picked up much more than a trace of snowfall dating back to 2011, so the last 10 years. Some of the records here, greatest snowfall that we've ever had on the actual holiday. We had 5.9 inches in 1909, 4.4 in 1926, 3.3 in 1890, 2.6 in 2005, and 2.4 in 1935. I think I remember the 2005 snow. That would have been my senior year of college at Ball State. And we usually will do Bailey Christmases, so my dad's side of the family, down in southern Rush County. And then we would drive up State Road 3 to Muncie. End up going to midnight mass with my mom. And I remember her calling us and saying, there's no way we're going to be able to make it to mass. And there wasn't. We left at a decent time, but that's usually about an hour drive for us to get up to Muncie then. And I believe it took almost 2 hours, probably. It was pretty tough sledding trying to get through that in 2005. Again, wasn't a lot. 2.6, that was on Christmas Day, if I remember correctly. We actually had a little bit more that night. It started snowing kind of mid to late night, Christmas Eve night, and then it just kind of transitioned over into Christmas Day then. So, let's see. We had 2.4 inches in 1935. Greatest snow depth on Christmas Day was 9 inches in 2004, 7 inches in 2002, 7 inches also in 1909, 6 inches in 95, and 6 inches in 35. So it's been a while since we've had that much snow on the ground. Obviously, 2004, most recent with that. What I'm most interested in, what I think could be in jeopardy, is warmest maximum temperature for Christmas Day. Now, remember, in 2019, we hit 62. That's good for fourth warmest on record. The record warmest temperature on the 25th of December, 64. That was back in 1893. 63 in 1982, rather. 63 also in 1889. We mentioned the 62 in 2019. And 59 in 1877. I mentioned these. Even though I'm forecasting a high of 50, I think it's worth a note that at least early in this week, and again, I'm recording this on a Monday, so there's a lot that can fluctuate and change. There are some, not all, but some models that are hinting at mid-60s for highs on Saturday. So if that would be the case, that would then put records in jeopardy. I do think that you'll probably see some mid-south states and maybe even some deep south states break some records temperature-wide. There are places like Tennessee and Alabama and Mississippi. They could easily be in the 70s for Christmas Day. So several areas are going to break records. It's just a question of how far north will that warm air surge for the holiday. I certainly think Christmas Eve, we could be seeing numbers near 60. I think the limiting factor there could be rain and knocking the temperatures down because of the lack of sunshine. So something to watch. And I think it's also worth noting, and you can check this out on the Indianapolis National Weather Service site. Is the probabilities for White Christmas, which are not as high as you would think. So snow records go back to basically the last 123 years. 60 times in 123, we've had at least a trace of snow on the ground. So that's 49%. That's a trace. The Weather Service classifies a White Christmas basically as 1 inch of snow. That would be more coverage, right? That's a good whitening there. That's happened 34 times. That's only 28%. So really only 28% probability that we have snow on the ground on Christmas Day. It's the odds are really not in our favor. 1 out of 4. Now, you could say that, and going back to what I've been saying, if you're sticking with the 1 inch classification for a White Christmas, we had that in 2017. But then we really didn't have anything measurable until 2010. You would say, okay, we're due. If you're once every 4, but yeah, I just don't think it's going to be in the cards this year. Certainly we were cold enough last year. We just didn't have the precip to go with it at 15. But, I think we've got the precip chances for Christmas Eve. It's just going to be way too mild for that. So you kind of have to luck out on both fronts with the cold and the precipitation chances. It just does not look like it's going to happen. And if you go back to Mike's forecast, the winter weather forecast, it's all right there, right? The signs were there early on that winter probably off to a slow start. And so here we go again. Seems like, our Decembers seem to be pretty bleak when it comes to snowfall. And then we kind of start to pick up some steam by the second half of January and then definitely into February and early March. So we'll see if that still holds true. But for those of you that like to romanticize about a White Christmas, unfortunately, I think you're going to have to wait until 2022 for another opportunity at that. We will have that Christmas week forecast coming up next here on Weather Weekly. All right, right, quick look at your forecast as we're going through this holiday week here, and this is going to be a weird one as we start rolling through the end of the week, especially. Unusually mild for late December. As this podcast drops, will be our coolest day on Wednesday, which is the 22nd. Highs probably won't get out of the 30s. However, we'll bounce back to the 40s on Thursday, and all of these days here are dry. Christmas Eve, big boost of warm air that's coming in here. And it's also going to come with or be accompanied by scattered showers, rain showers here. So we could be seeing numbers push close to 60 for Christmas Eve with some of that scattered rain. That's going to be across the Midwest, so do keep that in mind if you do have some travel plans, not only locally within the state, but across the region. Christmas Day looks dry, slightly cooler, although there are some models that are going as warm as the 60s and could be nearing record warmth. I kind of didn't go that aggressive because there's others that are still well above average, but not quite that warm. So as of now, kind of holding into the low 50s, but that is subject to change and probably leaning more toward warmer as opposed to colder. I think either way you slice it, you're going to be talking about well above average numbers here for Christmas Day. Could see another round of showers on Sunday, so if people are traveling back, you may be dealing with some of that rain there to wrap up the holiday weekend, and then a fairly quiet open to the last week for the year with temperatures in the mid-40s, I think, for Monday and Tuesday early next week. So nothing too significant, certainly no major snow chances around the bend as of right now, but we all know that script can quickly change this time of year, so we will keep an eye on it. Thank you so much for joining us here on this abbreviated podcast here at episode number 45. And since I won't talk to you until next week, have a very Merry Christmas, a blessed Christmas with you, yours and your family, and just appreciate the season and everything that we have. And hopefully you can get by okay and spend some time with some loved ones and people you care about. We'll be thinking about you. And hopefully you can join us for the last podcast episode of the year. That's next Wednesday when we'll be dropping that one. Looking forward to that. And while you're here, make sure you check out all the other great podcasts, all part of the All Indiana Podcast Network. Have a great week and a very Merry Christmas.
Discover more from Stormtrack 8 Weather and Wish TV. Online at wishtv.com and when you follow Wish TV on Facebook. Plus, be sure to check out more great podcasts from the All Indiana Podcast Network now at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.